Mixing with Mike plugin of the week comes from Submission Audio. Plugin is called Flatline. Now, this is not a new plugin. It's been out for a couple of years. I think when I originally checked it out, I wasn't impressed with it, but often coming back to visit plugins, you find something that you missed. Maybe it was just I called it up on the wrong track. Maybe I didn't test it out fully enough. Maybe I just wasn't in the right headspace. Things happen. But in my quest to find something, a limiter for mastering, is a bit more transparent than any of the things that I've been using. I came across this again, or revisited it. I think I got an email for a sale or something like that, and checked it out again, downloaded the demo again, checked it out, and it's like, wow, this is really amazing. The premise of the plugin itself is that it's meant to emulate the behaviors of clipping high-end A/D converters on high-end mastering engineers, the way that they do it, right? So most often the limiting done, or quite often the limiting done by the top-end mastering engineers, is basically just running the audio back in through a pair of A to D converters on some high-end converters and clipping the input. And there's a sound to that. What I found with this is exactly what I was looking for, though. Something that is transparent, simple, gives me all the basic controls that I need, like the user interface, really straightforward, the way that it works. Let's dive right into it. Up on the top, we have, all the basic stuff, undo, redo, all of that sort of thing. Menu bar here, you could show hints. That's helpful if you're just getting to know how to use it. Go to the manual, visit the website, etc., etc. We have the main display here. So this will show a variety of things based on the meterings that you select. So if you notice here, with each of the meters, we have input, gain reduction, output, and LUFS. And there are three settings here on the LUFS. You have the short term, or momentary, right? That's 400 milliseconds. You have the short term, which is, I believe, 3 seconds. And then you have the program, or integrated, which is the whole program material. So normally I just go to the short term here, get like a good measurement. You'll see that number in LUFS up here. You'll see input level, you'll see output level, and you'll see gain reduction here. Now the little eyeball thing here is what you see on the meter display. So if I play something through this, if I want to see input level or not, I can basically set that display to show exactly what it is that I want to see. Right, so this way I can see what the resultant output is. I can see the gain reduction, etc. So those are where I select my meters. The main controls. One other quick thing here. All right. So when we get to the display, there's also a level control here where you can set this just for basically the metering. So you could have the display meters be down to 56 dB. I usually do it to a smaller amount. It's sometimes worth switching to see if there's any low-level noise or anything going on down at the bottom. All right, so we have all of that. We have a resize control down in the bottom for 3 different sizes for the user interface. And here we have the basic controls. Threshold, right? So we bring the threshold down. You see the dotted line come across. That's pretty straightforward. There's a little thing here called delta. Delta will allow you to listen to what it is that you're taking away. And this is very helpful just as like a simple way of using it. If you start cranking down your threshold and then you start hearing guitar parts and bass parts and stuff like that, you've probably gone too far. But if you're hearing little clicking sounds, then you're probably just trimming peaks. Now you're going to see some of that in the display, but it's a kind of nice little tool to use to kind of help you, guide you basically as you go through it. Then there's the shape. You could do a hard shape here, which is like a hard knee on the limiting at 100%, or a soft knee, 100% soft knee down here, and you can see the curve change here. So this is basically the way that it attacks the transient and how it basically trims it down. So you'll get some kind of softer smoothing type of effect this way. You get something that has a little bit more edge and presence on it by going to 100%. Output control is pretty straightforward. There's an auto makeup gain. So if you select this, as you drive the threshold downward, it will automatically raise the level up to wherever you set the output level to. And that's handy, obviously, for going through and just, basically quickly getting your level. Basically, limiters come in two separate designs, more or less. You're either driving input level towards a ceiling where the threshold is always at 0 or some point that's really high, or you're lowering a threshold and it's automatically bringing the level up to whatever your target is. Either way, whatever design, it basically results in the same thing. This is just another way of dealing with it automatically if you like to work that way. Otherwise, ultimately, you will have to hit it at some point if you're using it for mastering just to get the max output. I'm not going to do it that way because it'll be easier to A/B what's going on here. Now, when we're working with this, you can also put on oversampling. So this will help you to get more detail, more resolution out of the limiting. You get that there. There's a DC offset. You can also include dithering, right? So you have that option there, and then you have how far down you want to dither it to. So all those options are available should you need them. The most transparent way to do it, believe it or not, is, and in reading the literature on this, it's sort of an opinion, and I think there's sort of a split about this, whether you just hard clip and let it go from there, or do you soft clip, do you kind of pull it back, but you end up with a bit more coloration in the overall sound. And so there's a bit of a trade-off there, but if you really pay attention to it, what you generally get with the hard clipping is a little bit more presence or a little bit more of an edge. But as you start to bring in the oversampling, it starts to soften that up. You get a slight change in the texture of the rest of the music. So let's listen to this bypassed a little bit, and then I'll kick it in, and well, actually, it'll pretty much be what it is. And this is an interesting thing that I've found with a lot of limiters. Even if they're not limiting, they still end up changing the sound. And so that there's under the hood stuff that's going on, and that you think would only be active when the limiting is occurring. Because part of the design with many of them is that you have these preset things that'll just say something like modern, or it'll whatever, give you some kind of preset type of thing or aggressive, or some kind of name, and all that is just basically where is it applying in the frequency spectrum, where is it more heavily applying the gain reduction. And but you don't really know exactly what's going on. You don't have a way to adjust it. You select the one that you like and you roll. With this, it has none of that, right? So you get no coloration without getting any clipping going on, right? So let's check that out to start off with.
The way you looking, I didn't notice till then. Who you fooling? 'Cause I don't believe your lies no more when you're talking. I just know you're clowning. Who you fooling? 'Cause I don't believe your lies no more.
Right, so pretty straightforward. Nothing going on there. Let's bring the threshold down and start to do some clipping here. See how far we can go.
The way you looking, I didn't notice till then. Who you fooling? 'Cause I don't believe your lies no more when you're talking. I just know you're clowning. Who you fooling? 'Cause I don't believe your lies no more. You're trying, you lost me, thinking that you could leave me, losing all the lies that you tell.
So when that low end bass part is kind of where you really start to hear this, where that starts to kick in, or you start to hear it. Still pretty good. We're talking about over 6 dB of gain reduction, just, like hard clipping and running it down. So I'm going to back off from there because I just wanted to basically show you that. Or if we went here, we listened to the delta, we would be able to hear what's going on. Let me go to that section. Right, so you could hear all of that. Let's see. That might be more acceptable. Let's see what that sounds like.
You're trying, you lost me, thinking that you could leave me, losing all the lies that you tell. The one who you're chasing, she ain't bad like me. best of. I feel so in touch, but without your boy. But you didn't think that I can play this game.
All right, so pretty straightforward, but again, really, to me, to my ear, is pretty transparent. Let's listen to what we have here with the oversampling. Let me skip back to the previous section here.
The way you looking, I didn't notice till then. Who you fooling? 'Cause I don't believe your lies no more when you're talking. I just know you're clowning. Who you fooling? 'Cause I don't believe your lies no more. You're trying, you lost me, thinking that you could leave me, losing all the lies that you tell. The one who you chase and cheat ain't bad like me. Don't believe the lies that you tell.
Right, so you can get a sense of like there's just a slight characteristic change in it with the oversampling. It went all the way to the maximum setting. Now, one thing you'll notice is if I set this up, there's also a safe clip thing here. Because the enter sample, when you work with that, it will create peaks that go over or potentially can go over. The safe clip will prevent that from happening at the native sample rates. If you're at, I'm not sure exactly what we're here, 48 or 44.1, it will clip it down to that sample rate, even though you're 128 times that, in the intersample peak stuff. Let's go through a couple things. I'm going to go back to this off, and then we'll revisit it. And I just wanted to go back here for a second to the shape control just to show you a little bit of that. Here we go.
The way you looking, I didn't notice till then. Who you fooling? 'Cause I don't believe your lies no more when you're talking. I just know you're clowning. Who you fooling? 'Cause I don't believe your lies no more. You're trying, you lost me, thinking that you could leave me, losing all the lies that you tell. The one who you chase and cheat ain't bad like me. Don't believe the lies that you tell.
So obviously you can see how when you start to go, way down to a super soft that, then it just starts to extend the gain reduction too much. But you could hear how you have now an option, a way of softening a bit of the edginess that might come from a hard clip. Well, let's see if we can find a good balance here.
The way you looking, I didn't notice till then. Who you fooling? 'Cause I don't believe your lies no more when you're talking. I just know you're clowning. Who you fooling? 'Cause I don't believe your lies no more. You're trying, you lost me, thinking that you could leave me, losing all the lies that you tell. The one who you chase and cheat ain't bad like me. Don't believe the lies that you tell. You make me feel loved like I'm your best of. I feel so in touch, but without your boy. But you didn't think that I can play this game. Heart's beating fast.
And one final thing here that I just wanted to mention, so you can get a sense for just, the subtlety and the control that you have over it. I love it because it's not trying to do too much. It's just really straightforward and simple. And if you think that hard clipping is not used, make sure that you check this out if you haven't already, which is just, make sure that you are downloading a file that is full resolution, right? So no a lossless version of it, whether it's FLAC or you can get the direct WAV file. I usually download from Koba's or one of those where you can get the original WAV files, sometimes even up to 96 kilohertz, and import it into the session. And you will almost always find, if you put an LUFS meter on that, it's maxed out, and you will almost always have overages, right? Intersample peaks, almost always. That doesn't translate well when you're doing things like converting to MP3s or any kind of thing where you're downloading or downgrading the resolution for the sake of speed or whatever. And that's, of course, used in a lot of the streaming services, particularly when you get to when you're using the app on your phone and you're just out and about, you're more likely to get a lower resolution version in the streaming than you would on a higher speed internet connection, even if you have a higher service level service. So those things do factor in there in terms of, there being some distortions or some issues coming along. But in just the native file that someone would download at full resolution, you see a lot more of this than what you would think. And I noticed that it's pretty much consistent with almost all the major artists of things that I've downloaded. Almost all of them have intersample peaks. So there's sort of this idea like, oh, you can't do this. You're going to, crap out consumer electronics. And probably most of the people that are listening on that, if it was happening, they're not noticing. Or they're just turning it down or something because it's distorting. So I'm not as afraid of that as I used to be. And then there is the, sort of kid gloves way of going about it where you make sure, everything is like all your boxes are checked and you have none of that sort of stuff. But, on the pro end, on the top end, the way the major artists are working, that sound is there. And it is a sound. It is a unique thing. This plugin, it was a real revelation to me just in its simplicity and just the fact that it kind of does what it does. And it's the first thing that I've found, and there probably are others, and I've used many, that give that same kind of finished sound that you find on a lot of those top end records where they're just clipping the converters for the gain reduction just to maximize the output. All right, there you have it. Flatline, a really cool one. Just because of the transparency, you're always going to have some change in sound, but this is one of the more transparent ones, or the most transparent one that I've found to date. Let me know if you have something better. Plugin of the week, Submission Audio, Flatline. Check it out.